Hello, in today's episode we are going to be discussing the matrices and how they work, and also of course in relation to the matrices, the alignment, because it's very important we understand how things begin to relate to each other when alignment and connection start to become more prominent within the bodies and the experience through, usual life pursuits. So the matrices, their function is to bind, right? They coagulate, they bring things together. And what do they bring together? They bring the bodies together. So the physical body is bound to the astral body via the astral matrix. The astral body is bound to the mental body via the mental matrix. Okay, and of course the mental body is bound to the akashic body via the etheric matrix, or the akashic matrix, we might say. So anything that has an identity has a matrix. It has consolidation, and the matrix, it's kind of like a sealing substance. Okay, so there are greater and smaller, we could say fractals of matrices that we end up working with. Any injury has a matrix, has an identity, right? Whether that is emotional, mental, or physical, there's an identity to the matrix. So that's a big part of the healing process, is learning to unbind those. And that is a big part of why much healing doesn't work, is because it's not working in relation to the identity of the injury, and the identity of the injury at the layer that injury takes place, or at the multitude of layers that injury exists. So we have these matrices, and we need to learn how to willfully, or we could say choicefully, open them. Okay, we can always look at control, but a higher octave of control is freedom. So if we are trying to impose ourselves on ourselves, we are no different to ourselves than taking psychedelic drugs or any other kind of substance that robs us of the integrity of the matrices. Okay, so we end up stealing the integrity of the matrix from ourselves. And this is a very entertaining topic, because we get into this paradigm of fighting ourselves, doing something against ourselves. And this almost always leads to some kind of injury in one way or another. It slows the path down a lot. Okay, so our matrices bind, they organize, they bind. And in order to progress spiritually, we need to unbind the matrices. Why? So that the energies in the bodies are able to move and alchemize through the different densities, the different layers, and come into resonance with more refined spiritual light and connection and frequency, so on and so forth. If we are bound and stuck together, now all the subtleties of the identities and the overarching identity, these are all stuck. Okay, so this is why it's so important that we are able to choicefully open the matrices. Why is the choice so important? Well, if we if we don't use choice to open the matrices, let's say we rely on various crutches like ayahuasca or mushrooms, or let's say like sweat lodges, various physical types of exercises, what we end up doing is we end up overusing these crutches. And like any crutch that we use for too long, we atrophy in the presence of that crutch. So we don't develop any sovereignty in relation to our ability to open, nor do we have any sovereignty in our ability to close, to reconsolidate the matrices. When we open the matrices, again, this is so that we can touch more refined frequency and then realign, come into resonance mentally, astrally, vitally with the higher refinement of frequency, and then we reconsolidate the matrices. that reconsolidation is important, because if we don't do that, well, we're open to anything, right? Just because we're open doesn't mean what we are tuning to is useful. Okay, you can be open and you can be tuning to some really not so good things. Various ideologies can just slip in. Really, any work that has yet to be done on your black and white mirror that needs to be done, these will end up controlling what you reintegrate with, if there is no choice there. Okay, so this is a very easy way to end up in cults, to end up in spiritual groups. If anywhere, especially that there is a group identity involved, you're at high risk if you haven't developed sovereignty in relation to opening the matrices and reconsolidating the matrices. So, when we are looking at opening the matrices, we might go, okay, well, what's the value of doing, using drug substances or physical exercises like or rituals, let's say like the sweat lodges, the sauna type stuff, the rituals of like spinning and so forth. Well, the value, let's say we talk about drugs like ayahuasca, mushrooms for a moment. Well, what do they do? What's one of the main things that those drugs do? Those substances, they defabricate the mental matrix, which binds to the astral. What's the value in doing that? Well, the astral aspects, the emotional energy, is no longer clinging to the mind. So the mind and the view that the mind has, what it can see, it's able to now move to expand and to see more, to see what it couldn't see. From the opposite perspective, the emotional energy is no longer bound to the mind, and the mind is no longer bound to the emotional energy. So freedom of the mind from the emotional energy is incredibly important for freedom of perspective and expansive perspective. Freedom of the emotional energy from the mind is very important, because now without the locked up view of the mind, the astral energy and the emotional energy, that's all able to move and flow and start to harmonize. It's very difficult for that to happen when the mind is locked, or when, of course, the emotions are locked. So once this opens, then we very often have the experience of seeing ourselves for the first time. Oh, I never, you hear this a lot with people who, are doing psychedelics. I never realized how I related in this way. I never saw this before, but now I can see. So this is great. It lifts the veil. That's a pro. A massive, massive con is that you've outsourced that perceptual capacity to a drug. You've outsourced the opening of the matrix to the drug, which means if you didn't open it willfully, you will be very unlikely, it will be very unlikely that you have the skill to close it, to close the matrices back down, to consolidate them willfully or choicefully, okay? That can be an issue, because then you're just open. So when the matrices are all open, right, there are ways that we can start to close them, just like there are tools to open them, the tool of the drugs, the tool of the physical exercises and rituals, etc. There are tools that we can use to close them, and one of those big tools is physical exercise, and especially physical exercise that involves recovering your balance. When you're open, right, we could say your mind's open, your emotions open, the body's open, the joints are open. That doesn't mean pushed open. That means the proprioceptors, right, aren't creating the squeeze to try to figure out where you are in space. So we get this very spaceless type of experience, timeless and spaceless type of experience, which is very useful. So to reconsolidate, to bring it all in, we can lift very heavy weights anytime the body is under a lot of physical stress, the mind pulls in. All the energy pulls into the body because that's where it's needed. So, of course, that can be a tool to work expanding the mind as well, but for the purpose right now, we can look at it from the perspective of consolidating the matrices, helping everything bind back together. Any activity which involves, let's say you do like wrestling or jiu-jitsu or something where someone else is trying to steal your balance, right? They're trying to steal your balance, and what you end up doing is the body ends up locking in for moments when it's being, someone's trying to manipulate it, and it's finding itself. So you're training the joint proprioceptors to find themselves, a whole bunch of other sciencey stuff I don't know how to explain. There's a whole bunch happening that helps us to realign, to come together. And that is one of the missing links for the integration side, especially when people are doing a hell of a lot of psychedelic and drug style healing. So can it be beneficial? Yes, but the potential downsides are quite strong as well. So healing, like any paradigm, very often you might hear people claim that the spiritual path is about healing. It's your healing journey. And healing, like any paradigm that we lock ourselves within, will be the thing that holds us back from growth. So we need to be careful of any attachment we might have to any proof of concept of the efficacy of the path that we are walking at the moment. And healing is one of those things. So the next piece of this is we have the dissolution of the matrices, and then we have the reintegration. And as we start to come into a stronger and stronger connection, where the mental body, the astral body, the physical body are all connected more, we come to an interesting set of experiences that can take some time to unravel. And that is where your thoughts have a very immediate impact on your emotions, which have a very immediate impact on your body. The emotions have an immediate impact on the mind and on the body. The mind has an immediate impact on the emotions and body. The body has an immediate impact on the mind and emotions. So if you aren't in full alignment mentally, astrally, and physically with a particular task you might be engaging in, you'll really start to notice the parts of you that aren't in alignment with that. They'll start to show themselves. And it'll be much more difficult to hide from ourselves, to lie to ourselves. Okay? And this often comes with, say, you could look at it, if you want, like an aspect of the subconscious shutting down the show, going, hey, you're not listening, and some aspect of your physiology will shut down, or some aspect of the emotional body will start running rampant, or some aspect of the mind will start going a little nutty, to help you see what it is that you are ignoring, or hopefully to encourage you to alter your course of action into something that is more aligned with the three bodies, the mental, the emotional, and the physical bodies. So this can be an issue because it's a lot easier to lie to ourselves than it is to acknowledge honestly what it is that is in alignment with us in the moment. So this plays in, of course, to the matrices, because you hear a lot in the embodiment world, the spiritual tropes that people like to espouse, is that, okay, embodiment, that's great, embodiment, but is all that you're doing with your embodiment consolidating, further consolidation of the matrices? And if you don't understand how to open the matrices, then you end up getting stuck. You end up consolidating a supercharged ego and a supercharged identity, all of that energy, that constant integration, or rather consolidation, it's all coming together. And all this energy that you might be building through your concentration exercises, your mental training, your resolving of the black and white mirror, and all this energy that you're liberating through maybe breathing exercises or creating, or that you're liberating through release type training, whatever it might be, this all goes somewhere. And if it goes to the location that the mind is tuning to. So what is it that you're paying attention to? And if what we are paying attention to is integration of mental, emotional, and physical, and usually the push is towards the physical, then all this energy gets stuck in the body, the ego gets stuck in the body, the identity gets stuck in the body, and it's a very difficult part of the path to move past. So, this is why we need to have developed some ability to open the matrices. It's also why having access to a competent teacher when it comes to transmission, when it comes to someone who can kind of take your mind, take your awareness, whether that is at the level of your conscious awareness or not, someone who can start to tune you to higher refinement of consciousness. That way, when you're open and you're in that process of chaos, which is of course the swing of harmony, and in the midst of movement of harmony, we perceive often it as chaos. In the midst of those swings, when we're open and we're starting to tune, to realign to something, that thing we are realigning to isn't just totally random. It isn't our ego. It isn't the consolidation of the identity hiding behind, within our spiritual path. That's the identity's favorite place to hide, is in the spiritual path, and then basically the spiritual ego starts to grow, become very, very strong, and that of course is an issue. So of course we have the alignment, which is useful, but we always need to consider the opening, and we need to consider not staying open all the time unless we are at a point where we're capable of staying tuned to our highest refinement of consciousness and light all the time. If we aren't capable of that, then we are open to anything during those times when we are not focused on that object. So your ability to attend to your highest, we might say, or to flip it around, to attend to yourself from your highest at all times, that needs to be developed. In the absence of that, we need to have these consolidation periods where we evolve and then we equalize with this layer of evolution. We consolidate around that layer of evolution and that refinement of frequency, and that can take time. You go through whatever chaos you need to go through, and then you stabilize that. And then once that platform is stable, then you can go through that process of opening once again. Now, in order to stabilize, you have to be open to that layer you're stabilizing with. So this is once again where having someone go, hey, let's focus on this thing, this particular refinement of consciousness. You're here right now. We raise that up. Then you're able to start to resonate with that. That's very, very helpful. And that's one of the things that the transmission that we do in the training, when we're doing workshops and of course the courses and that kind of stuff, that's the point of it, is you're tuning the awareness, whether it is conscious awareness or supra awareness or subconscious awareness, whatever it might be that you're working on. We tune that. And so that allows the path to proceed with much more efficiency, because you aren't running around like a chicken with your head cut off. And can you just open and make a lot of progress? Absolutely. Do you need a teacher who is offering transmissions? No. Is it helpful? Yes. Very often, especially for people who have a strong personal practice, we end up stagnating within that. And there's often a lot of pride involved in not having a teacher. You know, I'm self-taught, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other thing. Just as much pride as there is in being part of a system and having a teacher, there can be equally as much pride in not having a system and not having a teacher. So there are traps literally everywhere, and it's up to us to figure out how to navigate those traps. It takes a lot of sincerity, honesty with oneself, to tune to these more refined frequencies. This, we could say, this light of truth that we end up surrendering into and realizing that you are of, and this starts to guide the path more. So, just to wrap up, we have the matrices. The matrices bind identity together, and having an identity is not a bad thing. There are smaller fractals of identity, and there are larger fractals of identity, or fractals of consciousness. And the ability to consolidate the matrices within whatever fractal of consciousness you're working with has a lot of value. Equally, the ability to open the matrices choicefully has a lot of value. This means that what we align to matters during those times when we are open. What is it that we are opening to? That's the first step. Then the unification process, coming into an aligned resonance, a harmonized resonance with that new refinement of consciousness, is of vital importance. So that's about it for this one. I think if I continue, I'll just start rambling. So, of course, if you're interested in training, please check out the website. There's courses and, of course, upcoming workshops that you can look there. There is an initiation into Hermetics workshop online that is 6 weekends in a row starting September. And there is a 1-month Akasha retreat in November that can be participated in through the first 10 days, the first 14, or the full 30. So you're welcome to check that out. And hopefully I will see you at one of those. All right, thanks a lot. Hope you enjoyed this. We'll see you on the next one. Practice.